Welcome to the Beyond Pain podcast with your host, Joe Gambino and Joe LaVacca. Join the two Joes, two physical therapists, as they discuss how to navigate the uncertainties of pain so you can move beyond it and get back to the activities you love most. This podcast is for Joe, and their guests to share their clinical thoughts and ideas based on their collective clinical experiences. Can this information be for you? Maybe, but we cannot know for sure. Therefore, it is always worth talking to your healthcare provider to make the best decisions in your care before you implement anything on this podcast. And please use common sense.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beyond Pain podcast. My name is Joe LaVacca, and I am one of your hosts. The other host is taking the week off. Mr. Joe Gambino is away with his friends and family. We hope he's having a good time. But if you know me, I can't do anything alone. So I brought on a very special guest and co-host today for everyone, Miss Katie Dabrowski. Katie is the director of rehab at Old Bull Athletics in Florida. And Katie, you have two offices, Pinecrest and Coral Gables. Are you in both?
No, I see patients only in one location, and we have an incredible team in the other location.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Katie is an amazing PT educator, and I have been looking forward to having her on the podcast for quite some time. So, Katie, I'm going to let you take the floor, introduce yourself, whatever you would like our listeners to know about you. Please help us understand a little bit more about Katie.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited. You know, it's cool. I kind of put this together. So back when I was in PT school, which was like 2016 to 2019, the whole like Instagram world of PTs wasn't super big yet, but Joe's page was one of the first that I followed.
Oh, he'll love that.
Yeah, so it's like this cool full circle moment where I'm like, man, like who would have thought? So just very happy to be here, and thanks for having me. So yes, as you mentioned, I'm a physical therapist and a strength coach. I wear a few different hats. So I'm co-owner and director of rehab of Old Bull, where I treat patients and then manage the team and help us continue to grow. We have just the most incredible team of coaches and rehab providers. And at Old Bull, basically our mission is to change healthcare and to make people, when they walk in, not really know if somebody's doing training or rehab. We're very movement-based, very strength-based, and we're just trying to really empower people to be the fittest and healthiest versions of themselves along just the normalcy of life, of getting pain and injury along the way, and how to come out of it. A few other hats that I wear: I teach neuroscience at a university, actually where I went to undergrad, which is pretty cool, and I love that. It keeps me kind of in the know of what's going on in the academic side. I'm a neuroscience nerd, so I absolutely love that part of it. And then being able to bring in some clinical stuff for undergraduate students who, most neuroscience majors aren't just doing it for fun. They're doing it because they want to go to med school or PT school. And so being able to bring in clinical stuff is very cool. And then I also am involved with Gifted Academics. We're a group where we create kind of no BS, exactly what you need certification prep resources for the CSCS, the CPT exams, the CISSN, the sports nutrition exam. So just very, very passionate from the education side, and just like, I don't know, man, trying to make this industry better and making sure that people feel really fulfilled. I think our jobs are so cool, but burnout and maybe not getting the best resources, all of those things are problematic. So I'm trying little by little to help combat that.
Yeah, well, if you could share your passion with our industry, I think there'd be a lot less burnout. And I think sometimes, to me, that's what's missing. I meet all these people and they're just like sort of confused on their journey. I know they're younger. They'll find their path. I told them to just give themselves time, meet themselves with some grace. You did have a little flex on us there when you said you were in PT school in like 2019. So you're obviously a lot younger than me, which is awesome. But I love
Well, I did
hearing.
go to school later, so I am 33, so I did go to
Yeah,
school
you're a lot younger
later.
than me. You're a
Yeah.
lot younger than me. No, but I love how, again, like passionate you are about the field, and that always comes through in your Instagram page. And you mentioned Old Bull and how you guys have this team. It reminds me a lot of what I always see from Ryan at Reload. That's the
Yes.
team over here in New York City, where you guys all genuinely seem to like each other, which is also probably helping with burnout and helping you guys have a lot of fun.
Totally.
Yes.
We consider Reload and Old Bull to be kind of sister gyms. We as you can imagine, there's a ton of back and forth of clients in New York and Miami. So we actually get to collaborate a ton together, which is so much fun. And it's funny you mentioned that. I remember when I visited Reload for the first time, it was the very first time I had walked into a gym where it felt how I feel when I walk into Old Bull, and where I just could feel this energy and this buzz. And like everybody's goofy and fun, but also so good at their jobs and passionate and focused on like creating this next level experience. And I felt that immediately at Reload. Like they are just an incredible team.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk a little bit about the environment of rehab. Where I am located at Strength of Motion, we're a private training studio. So all your kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells. So when people walk in off the elevator, there's always like a double take. And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, sorry, there's no white walls or candles and that, nice, easy listening music in the corner. I don't
Right.
have a Keurig. I don't have a hot cold pack machine, but here we
Yeah.
are. We got weight. Let's go.
Yep.
So I think that's
Love
really,
that.
really cool. I'm going to start off with a couple of easy questions, Katie, just so we can get to know you even better. And the first one I have for you is, what are you reading, listening to, or watching at the moment? You can go all three or just one, but what would you recommend to myself or the listeners out there?
Well, great questions. Um, I I love to read, but I find that listening to stuff is just easier with how busy we are. When I travel, I try to just pick a book to read for fun and kind of just try to relax with that. It's funny though, because like a lot of the books that I pick to read for fun are not fun. Like I was reading, I can't even remember it's up there right now as I look up, The Price We Pay, and it's all about
Oh,
like the downfalls of the healthcare system, and it's super
love it.
depressing. My fiance is like, we're at a pool on vacation and you're reading about like dismantling the healthcare system. So that's just for funsies. But from a podcasting perspective, there's so much good stuff out here. Obviously, this one. I'm a big fan of just like, I'm such a strength and conditioning nerd. Like, I love the Iron Culture podcast with
Yes.
Eric Helms. Like, they're hilarious. And it's also just extremely evidence based, but also just conversational. I think for PTs and for rehab folks who are trying to get more exposure to the SNC world and just like the lifting world, that's a really great one to listen to. So I'm always listening to that kind of in the background. It's a great show. Watching otherwise, I'm not really watching much right now. So I don't have anything for you there, but
Oh, no Squid
reading, if
Game
you want to
3,
get,
no Bear, no nothing like that.
I haven't watched that. No, also, again, my fiance thinks I'm a serial killer because I'm not super into TV. So, you're just learning a lot about our relationship right now. But no, I mean, well, sometimes just I like comfort of watching the same things that make me happy. So Veep
There
is
we
our favorite
go.
show ever, and we
Love Veep.
rewatch Veep religiously. So
All
I guess
right,
that would
very
be the
good.
answer. Yeah.
All right, cool, very good. What about music? What's on the turntables?
I notoriously am known for PRing to like sad R&B. So that's really what I like to listen to a lot. Frank Ocean is my favorite artist of all time. So that's
All
always kind of on in the
right.
background. You just got to feel something when you hit that PR.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Come down, start crying with all the hard work that you put in to get there. Yeah, I
It's so
I like
funny.
it.
The people in the gym, actually, my business partner is really similar to me. We have like mirror images of music interest, but everyone else will be like, can we put something else on? Are you okay? So, just different interests in the gym.
Absolutely. Joe and I also have a loose kind of coffee theme on the show back when we
Hmm.
were young and youngins. And there's actually a couple of our initial episodes on YouTube when I think it might have been in my late 20s when we just started dabbling, recording ourselves in the back corner of a clinic. And we would do it over coffee. Katie, how do you take your coffee?
My gosh, I've never met caffeine I don't like. Big caffeine fan for sure. I like black coffee. I just want it to just
Mm.
do the job, get straight into my bloodstream. Being in Miami, we're spoiled. We have such good coffee. So we have
Hmm.
very, very strong, amazing coffee. I've gotten into matcha lately as well,
Well, that's big at the gym
which
too.
yeah, which has been interesting. I like it a lot too. So yeah, black coffee or some matcha and I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm trying the matcha because I want to fit in with the trainers and everybody at the gym. So they do these like matcha latte runs, and I'm just like, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, for sure, get me one. And then there's a place called Cha Cha, which might be in Miami too. I think they're a chain. And
maybe.
one of the trainers, I bumped into him on the elevator yesterday, and he was like, he has 4 iced matcha lattes, and I was like, how much did that run you? He was like, this was about $49.17. And I was like, damn, I
Yeah.
really wish I would have gotten in on it. He was like, I couldn't afford it. He's like, sorry, you would have been the fifth person I asked because I'm right by the elevator. He's like, I had 4 yeses, and that's about, I carry $50 on
That's
me, and
capped.
that's
Yeah.
that's it. Now I can't eat lunch today.
Yeah, it is expensive. It is expensive. Who knows if for good reason, but I bought in. It appealed to me on the target market,
Yeah.
So
Excellent. All right, Katie, thank you so much for being so open and cool so far. I'm going to switch gears for us. And aside from wondering how people take their coffee, the first question we always ask guests is, what is your experience with pain and injury? And how has that defined both the way you view pain now as a person and as a professional?
such a good question. Yeah, I mean, I find that most people who go into this industry, it's probably because they've dealt with something on their own from a pain and injury perspective and became passionate about how to help people do the same. So, we've all had our shares of aches and pains and things like that. My biggest injury and probably the defining injury for me, I was a rower in high school and college, and I had a pretty severe disc herniation in college that actually stopped me from finishing my final year of rowing. And that in itself, devastating to somebody who spent their whole life in this sport to go to college for it. Definitely such an emotional and psychological side of things that really stood out to me, and just still something I'm really passionate about with helping people through. Looking back, it was such the perfect storm of things coming together for an injury to be more likely to happen, or symptoms to be bothersome instead of maybe not. Rowing, it's obviously a really hard sport and a lot of stress on your low back, but beyond just the mechanical stress of it, I mean, in college rowing, we are practicing 20 to 25 hours a week. We are getting up at 4:40 or 4 o'clock every morning to be at the boathouse at 4:45, but we're still college students, so we're not really sleeping. And I was a lightweight rower, which comes with a weight restriction. So I was absolutely involved in disordered eating and not eating enough, and, lost my menstrual cycle. Like, all of those things was kind of the poster child of low energy availability and REDS. Um, I was a neuroscience major and set on getting a neuroscience PhD. So I was doing research and running into labs and trying to get publications. And I was, again, also a college student. So the one day a week that we could go out, I'm going hard and I'm drinking all night on a Saturday. And it's just that cycle. And it's so obvious knowing what we know about the complexities of pain and how all of this stuff is linked. But at the time, it was very much just seen as this mechanical injury. And I remember I've always been quite strong. I've been strength training now for 20 years. And by the time I was getting into college, like, it had been something I had done for a long time. And when I was doing the physical therapy for my back, I could like do everything they were asking me to do because I was strong enough, but it hurt. And it was really painful and it was really depressing. And I still felt I was debilitated all day. So it was this weird thing of like, how can I be so strong, but then still have this pain? And I don't know if I even recognized it at the time, but now I do. And it just shows you how there isn't one answer for why somebody's experiencing pain. And everything isn't based on some mechanical injury only. And everything isn't just an answer of like, well, you're just weak, so we have to get you stronger. So all of that stuff just really kind of like culminated. And I'm extremely passionate about helping people navigate those situations for themselves, and really being open and vulnerable about my own experiences to make people realize like there is a light at the end. I mean, I don't think most people, if they look at my Instagram and see what I'm doing in training, I don't think most people would think that I've ever had a disc herniation that stopped me from my sport, or that I couldn't tolerate deadlifting for a while. But I think it's a really great example of it's just made me a lot more resilient and a lot more psychologically understanding of how awful an injury is from a mental health perspective. Like, looking back, it's so evident that I was just wildly depressed when it was happening, and I didn't know at the time. So I think all of that, like, I think these things shape our experiences so much, and that's always been something that I hold very special to have been able to go through and then kind of help people when they're going through their own journey as well.
Yeah, that story is amazing. And it's so common with a lot of the people that we bring on. I feel like a lot of our clients, our patients, they look at us, like you were saying on Instagram, and they're like, well, Joe's never had pain. Katie's never had pain. Joe doesn't know what it's like to feel depressed or anxious. Katie's never had anything bad happen. And then you're like, well, hold on. I'm a human being, right?
Hmm.
I'm just like you. Chances are we have experienced a lot of the same thing. And as you point out, this devastation and the depression and obviously your neuroscience background, wanting to help maybe some of the mind and body side of things. How often do you jump in and share your story, or maybe when do you share your story with clients? Because I imagine discs and back pain is something you guys are seeing a ton of. Working with athletes, Reds is probably coming up all the time. So, where do you kind of jump in and share your story? Where do you feel like that's valuable for people in the rehab process?
It's one of those things where you definitely have to read the room because we don't want to make it about us. Like that's always the fine line, right? I like to discuss some of these things as a relationship starts to develop more from a personal standpoint because I want to make as much as possible like this is about them and their story, and that's a huge part of it for sure. But I would say in most instances at some point throughout the duration of working with people, people will straight up ask too if I've ever experienced anything, or I will pepper in and share some of my own experiences, especially when there's things that are so personal that I can deeply understand, like a back injury. I think unless somebody's experienced true back pain and like nerve pain, it's really hard to conceptualize just how debilitating it is. And it's one of those things. Then this is to be said for any musculoskeletal injury, but I think back pain is something that's even more emotional than other things. And on the outside, you look fine. Nobody knows that really anything is wrong. And I just remember vividly, like, I was a college kid, so still trying to go out and live my life, but like
Yeah.
I couldn't even be engaged in the situations that were happening because I was just standing there in so much pain. And that part of it is so difficult for people of like, well, how do I even have a normal life anymore? So I definitely share those things. And then additionally, like on the side of Reds and like low energy availability and things that I talk with women very personally a lot about because the struggles of balancing training and nutrition and workload and not under eating and all of that, it's such a difficult concept for most people, especially women. And I like to be very honest that I've experienced the same struggles. Again, similarly, they might see me and be like, well, like you have all this muscle, you're fine. You've never like had an issue. And it's like, no, I used to really struggle with this too. And it's things that I'm so excited to be on the other side of because I want to help people. So it's always probably weaving in at some point. It's just like reading the room of when the appropriate time is.
Yeah, I've found that when people share their stories, they do feel so alone. And most of the time, to just start that whole connection process, I'll just remind them, hey, this is something I hear all day long. So, what you're feeling, what you're going through is completely normal.
Yes.
And sometimes people are surprised by that.
Yes.
And
It's so validating. It's so
right.
important.
And I'll just kind of ask for permission sometimes. I'll just say, look, when you're ready, if you would like me to share some stories that others have gone through or myself has gone through, I'm more than willing to talk to you about that. However, like you said, I want to make this about you today. So let's figure out, more things about you and your life. And I think this is a perfect segue because you're a college student. You have this pain. You're working hard. You're trying to, be in your 20s and set yourself up for the rest of your life, but then also compete as a rower. And pain, as you so wonderfully put it on a recent podcast that you're on, right? It's this connector. We all have pain at some point in our life. A lot of clients that I work with, and I'm sure this is the same for you, come in and they say, look, I have a high pain threshold. I can tolerate pain, but there's always a limit. And your story there just reminded me of that difference between pain and suffering and pain being so complex. Yeah, I want you to focus on volume and load management and tissue reconditioning. I want you to focus on your sleep and your nutrition. Oh, and by the way, I want you to go out with your friends and I want you to, manage your relationships with your fiance and I want you to be intimate and I want you to be social and I want you to be all these things. And you're like, how do I do that when I'm within pain? So in your opinion, are we kind of focusing maybe too much on pain relief and not helping people with suffering? And how do we maybe go about distinguishing that?
Love this question so much. Yeah, I mean, I think, and I also love what you said about it being a connector because it still surprises me because, again, we're just in this bubble and we talk about these things all the time, but the average person still really does not understand that pain is normal, and that pain is to be expected. Pain is something that people are going to have throughout their life. It's part of the human condition. And the absence of it isn't the only way that you are healthy. And I think most people still really think that. And if we can shift that of thinking it as a connector and it being something that we know everybody is going to experience in one way or another, and our goal is to help people, be as resilient and robust as possible psychologically and physiologically to be able to handle the inevitabilities of life. I think that's a really important mindset shift, and I like that concept so much. And in terms of, yeah, like how much we focus on pain versus the suffering side of things and just being able to like manage your life in spite of pain, I think that's very important. I think even over the past couple of years at Old Bull, we've really shifted a lot of our messaging even to pain-free training and come see us to get out of pain. And are you dealing with pain? Let's fix it. Because I don't think our main job is to fix people's pain. I think our main job is to create a human and help create a human who is so, so mentally and physically strong and robust and resilient that regardless of what life throws at them, they can tolerate it. And to help create a game plan for when these things do happen and how do we manage all aspects of your life? How do we still find joy in life? How do we still not think that pain is what defines us? That's really hard. It's a tall order compared to just, saying, well, I can kind of rub your shoulder and do some of these movements and your pain's going to go away. I'm very clear on that messaging now where, when somebody comes in to see us, a lot of course, their thought immediately is just about their pain. And I'm always explaining to people, like, we do things a little bit differently. I don't want you to be in pain and I'm sorry that you're experiencing it. And I know it's not fun. A big goal that we have is to restore and improve your function and make your quality of life better and help you see progress, even if pain isn't decreasing every single day. Part of our goal is to help you recognize what progress is and show you how amazing your progress has been, even if there's some pain day to day sometimes. And that, again, that's a great opportunity for me to share my own pain experiences too. Like, I don't train 100% pain free. Stuff bothers me, and that's okay. So I agree with you. I think it's very important in our industry to shift a little bit from like a fix it approach and just like curing pain and more to helping people cope and develop skills to handle flare-ups if and when they happen, and to see them as data points instead of setbacks, to see them as information for the process and information to help us better guide what our program might look like to be able to handle things. It's not perfect and it's not easy to get somebody to buy into that immediately. Something I talk about a lot, and I've talked about from learning this with Craig Liebenson, who's a mentor of mine and somebody that I teach very frequently with. Instead of trying to change people's minds about things, we can create scenarios in rehab and training where we're violating their expectations of maybe the fear they have around exercise or the thought that pain means they can't do things. And we can create an environment that's so positive and warm and welcoming that their mind might change without us having to tell them. I think we have a lot of areas of opportunity in our industry to be better at that.
Yeah, I love so many things that you said there. And I think that kind of like, and I think you and Craig both say this, like that kind of guiding by the side, right?
Hmm.
Negotiating people through their journey and not making it just about pain relief. And the more I read about pain and particularly chronic pain, one of the things I remind clients of, it's not just your knee. When we're talking about persistent or problematic pain, the longer it stays, the longer it affects you as a person. And we know that the brain rewires and there are actual changes in the way we think and the way we behave. Some of those things might not be reversible. So rather than trying to eliminate a part of you, why don't we better understand it? And then why don't we grow you to this robust person who can handle everything
Yes.
and know the right coping strategies when a flare happens or something doesn't go our way. And it could be smooth R&B, right? Maybe it's going for that walk, right? But you always have a plan to kind of move forward. And I think that's where a lot of the neuroscience stuff has helped me. And I would love your sort of input on this, because when we talk a lot about suffering with clients that I work with, one of the things I always want to know too is, well, hey, going out, and we'll just use you an example if that's okay. Going out's clearly important to you. You're 20, you're in college, you're with your friends. You have, though, this like really bad disc pain and back pain. What makes going out special to you? And if it's just being with your friends, well, hey, maybe you can't go out every Friday, but could you have friends over on then Saturday morning for like a game recovery morning and tea and breakfast and coffee? And you're still going to get the same thing, right? That friendship or that bond. And you don't have to go and torture yourself at a place like a bar and dance and, hop around and then pay for it the next day if that's all you're looking for. So when we think about graded exposure in that sense, have you ever talked about people like that with like social elements on like breaking it down or going out for 10 minutes one night and then going out for 20 minutes the next night? I mean, do strength and conditioning principles sort of play across the board, even when we're thinking about a lot of the psychosocial elements of our care?
I love that. Absolutely. Because I think most people when they come in to see a physical therapist or a rehab provider, a lot of times when they have pain, the expectation is just, and because it happens a lot, they're just going to be told to stop doing that thing. Like, okay, well, just don't do that. Like, okay, well, that doesn't really help
Yeah.
me very much at all.
Great. How much do I owe you?
Yeah, yeah, you're like, "Okay, great," and they just feel very limited by what they're able to do. The amount of people, and I know you can relate to this, who come in and just have almost like a laundry list of the things that they were told they're not allowed to do anymore, and we have to unpack that. But that totally happens from a social perspective too, of like, I think when people start to really open their eyes to understanding how much more of the psychosocial side of things are impacting their pain experience too, that's where those conversations of, yeah, like graded exposure and like progressive overload of social activities are important too. It's not just that, we have an RPE cap on our movement and we're decreasing the range of motion so you can tolerate it. It's like, well, yeah, what's the maximum tolerable dose of the social activity that you want to do? I think that's very important too. And I think that those are the concepts that are going to continually set providers apart from maybe more traditional models or more models that are focused on taking things away from you instead of finding ways to work with what you can do. And I think that's incredibly important for people. Most people, I would argue, when it comes to pain, the more difficult parts of it beyond the physical sensations are feeling out of control in your own body. And then also just feeling like your life is completely taken away from you and you are kind of a victim just to what your pain is going to allow you to do that day. So if we can create a strategy and understanding, like, just like we're kind of slow dosing what we're doing in training, you can do that in your personal life too. I think that's a huge and very probably overlooked component of our conversations with people.
Yeah. As we kind of segue into that idea of training and strength and conditioning, and one of the principles that you talk about so much, which I see is kind of gaining momentum in our field, at least in some corners, depending on the people you follow, is training is healthcare, right? And when you were opening up and you were introducing Old Bull and your mentality now, it's so much bigger than pain. It's building people to become healthier. It's building people to become more robust. Yet when we meet people, I feel like they're always looking for that magic bullet. Well, what
Mhm.
back exercise do you have? And what quad exercise do you have? Oh, and I saw you doing a weighted pull up the other day. Like that, like what exercise is going to help me do that with my shoulder pain? So when people are coming in with this idea that they need something specific for them, but we're trying to navigate this bigger picture, what does that discussion look like? How are you creating buy-in in those first initial sessions to say like, hey, look, we'll get to those things, but training is healthcare, and elaborate on that for us so that way we can think a little bit outside the box.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is I'm very clear immediately with a new patient, just kind of like what the goals of our facility and what our ideologies are. That, I like to ask if people have had physical therapy before and kind of what their experience was. And then I'll often say something kind of like, we do things a little bit differently here. The biggest focus that we have is making sure that you have a way to get a great training stimulus and be healthy and improve your general fitness in a way that is we can still manage your symptoms and really finding all of the things that you can do without discomfort or pain. That's going to be a big goal of our first session. I kind of want to have like a list at the end of this session of here's all the things that we found that you can continue to do without pain, because of how important it is for generally just your health being better. So having more muscle mass, having a better aerobic capacity, having good metabolic health, having fun things that you enjoy. Those systemic effects, physiologically and psychologically, can move the needle way more than me just zooming in on one body part. Zooming in on one body part doesn't really allow us to take advantage of hormonally how amazing it is to have more muscle mass and better aerobic fitness to help support you for what you want to do in life. And we try to use almost pain as an on-ramp for the reason you came to see us was for pain, but the reason I want you to stay with us and the takeaway I want you to have is we're here to help you be a healthier human. And I think if we're really clear with that expectation up front, it helps, because a lot of people, the questions I get a lot of like, well, what do I do if somebody's just like coming in for a diagnosis? And if you start your session by discussing that and what your goals are, that starts to lessen the need for it. I'm also very clear because ultimately, a lot of people associate a diagnosis with meaning that's now how I know what to do, or that's the only way that we're safe. And I'm always also very clear in saying, my number one job as a physical therapist is to keep you safe and rule out red flags or things that would be dangerous and warrant the need for different medical intervention. I'm doing that today on our first session, and I'm doing it every single time we meet. When I rule that stuff out, we're very, very safe to be able to move forward with what I just talked about, with really prioritizing doing all the things that feel good and don't give you symptoms and finding entry points for the stuff that's hard right now. So I'm always doing that to keep you very safe. And I will always tell you if something comes up where we need to reroute our strategy. So I think if you can be very clear with what you do and how you do it, and then also that you are keeping them safe and that you are not flippantly not caring about a diagnosis to make a point, that you are doing it because in the absence of trauma and red flags, we quite frankly don't need it. That is really a goal that I have. And that's hopefully a way to help with buy-in.
I love that. When you're building these lists and all the things that they do well and setting expectations, how do you explain to them, or how much do you let them work into discomfort?
Yeah, that's the famous answer always is it depends. It's always going to depend on of course, on the individual and what their tolerance is and what their injury history is. And for that, sometimes what tissue is involved, because we know if you piss a nerve off, it's going to stay angry a lot longer than maybe a muscle might. So knowing that stuff from a clinician standpoint, of course, is important. And so all of that goes into consideration. But a lot of it, I think most people just have a really hard time with understanding what is tolerable to push through versus not. Well, I sometimes use the verbiage is so different depending on the person, but a lot of times I'll kind of describe it as like we're going to knock on the door of discomfort but not open it. And I think that is an easy way for a lot of people, because it's not a 0 to 10 scale, because what the hell does that mean to anybody? It's not like the what is the green, red, yellow, red light system? Like that's helpful, but again, not for everybody. So I try to find ways that make sense to people. I also will ask them, like, does that feel like, when we're doing squats and your legs are burning, like that type of discomfort? Or does it feel more like it's making you change your facial expression? It's making you nervous. It's making you anxious, all of that stuff. Part of our job is to help people understand that not all pain equals harm, and and tolerable discomfort is very different from sharp shooting alarm bells pain. So that's a challenge always. I'm purposefully pretty hands off when it comes to when I'm getting people to move around and explore movement, because immediately most people are looking at me. They'll do like 1/4 of a rep and be like, was that right? And I'm like, I don't know. So I purposefully, I keep my language very vague about form. I keep my language very vague about where you're supposed to feel this, because I want people to just explore. And then I take their feedback and we can kind of get into the nitty-gritty from there if we need to. And that goes for pain too. Like if you feel discomfort on your first rep, okay, well, does it decrease when you continue? Is there a way that we can move your knee a little differently so it feels better? Like I need the data points of the person exploring movement before I jump in and tell them what they should feel.
Right. I use that term all the time. I need more data to help you.
Yeah.
We need more
Yeah.
trends. I need
Yeah.
more than one workout. I need more than one rep. And I love that sort of collaboration with people, let them do a rep, let them figure it out, let them do a few. And I love being hands off. And what I tell them, like you said, my job is to keep you safe. If I don't think you're safe, or if I think, something is going to harm you in the gym, something's going to fall on you, I'm going to stop you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you don't hear from me, just keep going.
Spot on.
And
Yeah.
then we'll talk about it. And I always want to know what they felt first, right?
Yes.
What did you notice through those 10 reps? Was it better, same, worse? Were you able to take the pain away in one or two of those reps? And then when they give me their feedback, then I sort of like try to confirm or just ask a couple more questions. Like, well, it was interesting you mentioned rep 4 and 5 because it looked like to me you were just shifting your weight back or forward or this way or that way. And that's seemingly when you had a little bit less pain. So why don't you try that tactic? Do it again, but now do it that way. And then to your point, oh, well, that's not how I'm supposed to do it though. Like, what are you talking about? I don't give a
Don't
shit.
care. Yeah.
You were squatting. It was less painful. I don't like, we'll work on the
Of
other
course.
stuff that's going on the
Yeah.
list. Squatting with
Yeah.
your weight shifting backwards. Right. So,
Yeah.
the things I use with the tolerable stuff, because I love all my answers in New York City. Well, I can tolerate anything if I know it's
Yeah,
not
of
going to
course.
hurt me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess so. But I don't really think then you probably have had a 9 out of 10 pain or a 10 out of 10 pain, but that's
Right.
another conversation for another day. So I do use the breathing. I definitely use the facial expressions. I always tell them that, I want them to clown up and slow down during their reps. If it's tough, right? So, they're making the funny faces, the rep gets slow. I was like, but if you're grimacing in pain, we probably want to say, is this worth it or not? And then, and I don't know if you do this as well, if you find value of this, but I just sort of started saying, like, let's see how you feel 6, 12, and 24 hours later.
Mhm.
Do you think that those are also like good runways for people to reassess, either programming? Is there a better number that you usually give to your athletes or clients to sort of really like maybe look out for to know if they're in that right ballpark of volume, movement, load?
That's actually precisely what I say usually too. Or even just simply like, let's see how you feel the rest of the day into tomorrow. But yeah, absolutely. I think I love all of those strategies. Yeah, I think making people a little bit more of an active participant in their pain experience and their rehab experience is huge because ultimately I think most people are coming to us with this expectation that there's a right or a wrong way to do everything and we're going to tell them the right way. To bring it back to neuroscience, like the way motor learning occurs is by trying a bunch of stuff and seeing what the most optimal way to do it for your goal is so you have the most success. I'm taking away somebody's ability to have motor learning, which is taking something that somebody is moving or somebody is learning from a movement capacity and bringing it to their cortex so it stays there and creates context and is now part of their, frontal lobe real estate. That's what is so important with this stuff because we're taking it away from more temporary learning and we're turning it into something in their cortex that stays. So if I take away that by telling the person immediately what I want them to feel, showing them really specifically their form, stopping them every 5 seconds, having a clipboard and giving them a checklist of all the things they need to do, I'm taking away their brain's ability to learn and create context. And that's extremely important for being an efficient mover and helping to like how do I utilize the strategy that's best for this task, like things that are really important. So I think that's huge. I think the more I kind of joke about it where I'll give somebody a movement and they might even say like, well, how do you want me to do it? I'm like, let's see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I purposely act a little bit like kind of standoffish and joke about it because I want them to know that it's not that serious. If it was that serious, I wouldn't act that way about it. But it's like nothing that we're doing is so life or death that if they move their knee in this direction, their movement's wrong and they're going to explode. So I think that is another way of like how we act when we're coaching people is very important. If somebody does a rep and they say they feel it and we're like, okay, well, next we're going to move here. We're going
Yeah.
to change this. Like we've just now terrified them and they're now scared of that movement and they're going to add that movement into their associations of things that are bad or wrong. So the more calm we can be, like, even if you flare somebody up, we're all going to do it. The more calm we can be, the more calm they can be. And we can start to hopefully unravel these associations of like X movement is bad. This pain means I did it wrong. That's the stuff that matters so much in rehab.
Yeah. I would love to reference a movie here, but I know you're not going to get it. Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio. Have you at least seen that one or?
I actually have seen that one.
All right.
Yeah, so thank you very much. That was one of those movies that I think when I told my fiance that I hadn't seen it, he was like, we're putting it on right now. What do you
Game
mean? So
changer. Yeah,
yes,
game
yes,
changer.
I
So
have
yeah,
seen it.
I always think about that. Like I want to plant the seed so that they come up with an idea or a thought process. And
Yes,
it's like they came up with it on their own and it wasn't just me giving it to them. And I think really that's the
yes.
art of coaching. And I'm so happy that you mentioned the reactions of us. And I can recall multiple times where, having difficult conversations with clients about anxiety and depression actually sparks some tough, debate. And the more you react without realizing, maybe where a person's coming from, or the more you react to someone, putting a weight down and grabbing their low back, which has happened to me a few times. And again,
Hmm.
you're going to think about, reinforcing that idea of like, oh no, like now I hurt my back or I'm feeling this. Oh my God, Joe's reacting. This must be even worse. Oftentimes I've sort of like just tried to come to this idea of like, just don't react to anything. Even when a person
Yeah.
PRs, I'm just going to be like,
Yep.
I want to see what they do first, right? Because inside I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to hug you, I want to fist pump you, and I want to high five you. But I was like, do you realize what you just did? And
Right.
sometimes people like they drop the weight and then they walk away from it. I'm like, what are you doing? That was awesome. Like, oh, it was amazing. Like, that was like a 300-pound squat. What are you doing? And they're like, yeah, this felt pretty good. I was like,
Yeah.
pretty good. Same exact thing. It's like, oh, I had back pain in the squat. It's like, yeah, okay, well,
Okay.
let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go from there. So I am really happy that you brought those things up. And I'm really happy that you've seen Inception. I think all the viewers too and people listening can also collectively exhale.
I'm so glad.
So as we're talking about clients, starting their journey or maybe getting some buy-in, I'm sure also the other side of this coin is we meet people who've tried
Hmm.
they're hitting their activity guidelines, they're following, to some degree, a nutrition program, they're sleeping well, yet, they still have pain. And I really think your background here is probably so valuable with the neuroscience, with your own experience, with all the things that you've like now sort of like collectively been building with Old Bull, sorry. How do
My
you
phone always
negotiate?
autocorrects to Old Bill, so that's
Oh,
hilarious.
okay. Yeah, this is my New York accent. I can't talk.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how do you help those people identify opportunities or just renew their faith in the process again?
That's a great question. I find often when we get people who come in feeling that they've tried everything, the one thing they actually have not tried was trying to maintain their fitness with what they can do. Find all the things that they can train without symptoms, find an entry point for what currently gives them symptoms, and then finding things to still like give them joy. I find when most people come in and they say they've tried everything, they've tried acupuncture and they've seen this guru and they've tried this corrective and they've done bird dogs for 4 hours a day and they've done dry needling and they've done e-stim and they've done all of these things. It's always so surprising to me when I hear people say like, man, I have tried everything. I had somebody with a just a nerve impingement, no red flags, nothing like that, but he had experienced weakness in his arm and he had been dealing with it for a long time on and off, and he comes into me for the first time and says he's tried everything. Well, I ask him what that is. His main symptom being that his arm feels weaker. Well, he's tried chiropractic, and this is not a knock against chiropractic, but he's tried more
Mm,
like hands-on stuff. He's
sure.
tried acupuncture, needles, medications, all of that stuff. And I said, well, that's interesting because the thing that you say that you're having a struggle with is you feel like your arm's gotten weaker. Have you tried strengthening? He said, no. So I think a lot of times, I think we forget how people still are so unfamiliar with what the body actually needs when there's pain or injury. And they try a lot of other things instead of actually the stuff that doesn't really sound as sexy. It's just like getting it a little bit stronger. Like you've poked and prodded and you've shoved needles in it and you've done all these different things, but you haven't actually done the thing to address the symptom that you came to me with. So I think having that conversation of like, well, what have you tried versus the things that we do that might be a little bit different, and trying to create that window of hope there of like, hey, we have a lot more that we can work with. We have a lot of strategies. You haven't closed the door on every possible option that you have. In fact, you came to the perfect place because we have
Right.
different strategies that I feel very confident are going to help you. I think that's a big part of it, like showing our confidence that we can help people with these tools because we trust physiology. Like, we know this works. We know if we create a stimulus that is great enough of a challenge, we're going to get an adaptation. We know that. We know we're going to get that in your tissues. And I know I'm going to get that in your brain too, because I'm slow dripping this movement that you're scared of. That, yes, I'm trying to get your tissues more tolerant of, but I'm trying to make your psychology and your brain more tolerant of it too. So I think if we can honestly make people excited over, like, no, you haven't tried everything. You haven't tried something that I'm so confident about. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's so important. That's definitely the common theme that I find here in New York as well. Is I've gone through all of these passive modalities. Yes, I'm doing a lot of things right, but maybe we haven't capitalized on the biggest pieces. And I often will compare it to like a roulette wheel. I'm like, if you and me were going to Vegas and you're not taking care of just general fitness, the things you love doing, the things that bring you happiness, those are the biggest pieces on the roulette wheel. I'm going to keep betting on them every single time. And, again, nothing knocking anything else, but the acupuncture, the dry needling, this, they're so small. Yeah, we can get lucky and it can land on that space, but it's way more likely if we keep betting on these big pieces, we'll probably get the results that we're looking for. So
That's
thank you
what
for
I
sharing
always,
that.
yeah, I love that analogy. And I always try to talk with people about that of like, I want to find the things that move the needle the most. And all of the physiological and psychological things I just mentioned, that moves the needle the most. The other stuff is nice to do. Is it need to do? Probably not. If it makes you feel better, I am never going to tell somebody to do something that doesn't
Exactly.
temporarily decrease their pain. Like, we love temporary pain decreases. That's important. But if we want to focus on the things that are going to be like the most opportunity for change, because ultimately that's what I want to spend time on, because that's what you're paying me for. We're going to do that. And we're going to use this hour and get the most out of it that we possibly can that will move the needle. And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Katie, I want to be respectful of your time. I got one more question, if that's okay. And I'm actually going to let you choose how you want to answer it. What do you wish either more patients knew or more physical therapists knew? You could pick either one that would enhance their understanding of care and the outcomes that we really are looking for.
Can I offer one on each side?
That
Okay,
was my
cool.
hope.
Okay, good. So I feel like it kind of centers on a lot of what we were just talking about for patients. I wish patients understood a bit more of what I think our job as physical therapists actually can be, beyond just fixing their pain or providing like a feel good session. I think that with the right training, with the right focus on communication and education, I think we're so much more equipped to help people have just like be like a healthier human as a whole, and zoom out on the really specific stuff that we learned in school, zoom out from the special tests and the poking and the prodding and the things that give us this like hyper specific answer, and care much more about what we can do to make them a healthier human mentally and physically. I wish more people understood that's what we can do. We have such a rare opportunity to have the time that we have with patients, even in a busier clinic. Like, I know we're fortunate that we have an hour with people, sometimes more. Even in a busier clinic, if you're seeing 2 patients an hour, that's still way more time, mostly one-on-one, than they're ever going to have with any other medical provider that they see. So I wish people knew that because of that time and the relationship development we get to do, and what our general understanding of the human body is, that we can do a lot more than just care about like zooming in on their tissue. And then conversely, I think it's kind of similar for physical therapists. I think one thing that is really lacking in our industry is knowledge of strength and conditioning principles and how to really appropriately challenge people. I think PTs are often very good at taking away pain and the bad stuff, but then the person is left with not really knowing how to ever challenge themselves again, or knowing that they don't have to have all these limitations. Your pain can decrease if you just stop doing stuff and stressing your body. But I think we need to be taking people so many steps beyond that. And we need to help people reintegrate into their lives. We need to help people understand the importance of muscle mass and their aerobic system and their metabolic health for overall musculoskeletal health. I mean, there's tissue changes in people who have poor metabolic health that looks the exact same as tendinopathy. So if we can help people just be healthier humans, and maybe not only think that our job is to temporarily reduce their pain or give them limitations, I think that's very important.
Well, Katie, amen. I think I can say very confidently, I've gotten better because of this conversation. I hope our listeners have gotten better. And with that last answer, I am very proud to have people like yourself leading our field. So thank you for all you do. I'm going to throw one last game at you. It's just for fun. Okay. There's no right. It's called this or that. All right. You probably, have played it before. We're not looking for answers or rationale. It's just this or that. You pick. You don't have to explain yourself. There's no judgments. Okay.
Okay. I'm
All
scared.
right. I'm going to start you off with an easy one. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Isometrics or plyometrics?
Plyometrics.
Quads or glutes?
Glutes.
Abs or abs?
Abs.
Pizza or tacos?
Oh my God. What? This is the first time I've really had an issue.
That's why we ease into,
Yeah. I love that the easy questions are.
yeah. It's like, yeah, what do I think about my like whole life training? Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Pizza or tacos? What?
Like, you're a monster.
I know you only listen to soft R&B, but Kendrick or Drake?
Kendrick.
Yeah. Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt? And we have come to the conclusion. Katie, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. For those who want to work with you, get in touch with you, learn from you, all the stuff, where can they find you? And tell us a little bit about your upcoming course in New York City.
Yes. Awesome. No, this has been so much fun, except for the devastating question of pizza versus tacos, but we'll overlook that. Instagram is always the best way. My Instagram, Katie Dabrowski, or our Old Bull Athletics page. Great resources on both of those. Or if people have questions, you can always slide in the old DMs. And otherwise, some things that are coming up. Yes, I am teaching my training as healthcare course, which is my favorite thing that I get to teach. I have a part 1 and a part 2 now. Part 1 is focused on the lower body. Part 2 is focused on the upper body. Essentially, a lot of things that we talked about in here, finding entry points for people, finding safe starting points for people, regardless of pain or injury, and regardless of being a coach, trainer, or a rehab provider. So finding all of the things that are within all of our scopes of practice, which is movement, and how do we rule out red flags to ensure that we are appropriately dealing with these things. The main kind of thesis and premise of training as healthcare is that diagnosis matters a lot less unless there's trauma or red flags. When we rule that out, us as rehab providers, coaches, trainers, we have a lot more of an even playing field of how we can help people. And there's so much more we can do for people in pain before we ever have to refer them elsewhere. I'll be in New York City. Actually, I'll be in Newport Beach in California the weekend of September 20th for part 2. Part 1 in New York City will be October 18th and 19th at Perfect Stride PT in the city. And I'll be back there again January 24th and 25th for part 2. We still have some spots. It's super limited. So if you want to get some of those remaining spots, highly recommend looking into doing it.
Yeah, unfortunately, in October, I will be in Tokyo, but this is a course where I looked at it, I was like, should I reschedule Tokyo so I can get to this course? So clinicians, if you guys are out there in New York City during those dates, please go check out Katie. Katie, thank you again.
Thank
We
you.
greatly appreciate it. We'll have to have you on again. I probably have about another 14 questions that I just wrote down for us. So we appreciate
Perfect.
your time. Thank you so much. And we hope to have you back on soon.
Yes, thank you.